The Republican Party understands the dark art of politics, but its candidates seem to struggle with science. The latest example starts with the human papillomavirus, or HPV. It is a sexually transmitted disease that has infected approximately 20 million Americans. Each year, about 12,000 women get cervical cancer because of HPV infections. But there is a vaccine that can prevent women from contracting the disease, a vaccine that can be administered to girls as young as 9. Virginia and Washington, D.C. have passed legislation mandating girls receive the vaccine. Rick Perry signed a similar executive order for girls in Texas in 2007. In our number one story, Michelle Bachmann continues to use her public megaphone against young girls receiving this life-saving vaccine, and now she's going even further. It all started Monday night during the Tea Party debate. In an attempt to make Rick Perry seem in favor of government health care, Bachmann attacked him for mandating HPV vaccinations.
I'm a mom of 3 children, and to have innocent little 12-year-old girls be forced to have a government injection through an executive order is just flat out wrong. That should never be done. That's a violation of a liberty interest. That's little girls who have a negative reaction to this potentially dangerous drug don't get a mulligan. They don't get a do-over.
Potentially dangerous drug? What about the definitely dangerous cancer? But it did not end there. In an appearance Tuesday on the Today Show, the Congresswoman brought it to the next level, suggesting the HPV vaccine can cause mental retardation.
But I had a mother last night come up to me here in Tampa, Florida, after the debate. She told me that her little daughter took that vaccine, that injection, and she suffered from mental retardation thereafter. It can have very dangerous side effects. The mother was crying when she came up to me last night. I didn't know who she was before the debate. This is the very real concern, and people have to draw their own conclusion.
Yes, do not listen to people who have studied the vaccine. Draw your own conclusions, or draw conclusions from people you don't know. The fact of the matter is that the FDA approved the vaccine, which the Centers for Disease Control says is recommended for girls and women aged 13 through 26 years of age, and that studies have found no serious side effects. But then again, Michelle Bachmann doesn't let facts and research get in the way of her scare tactics and her strange political maneuvers. For more, let's bring in Lizz Winstead, comedian and co-creator of The Daily Show, who is currently on a national comedy tour for Planned Parenthood. Liz, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, David.
So a lot of people have come out against Mrs. Bachmann here. A spokesperson for the Global and Regional Asperger Syndrome Partnership came out very strongly against her, saying, quote, "Congresswoman Bachmann's decision to spread fear of vaccines is dangerous and irresponsible. There is zero credible scientific evidence that vaccines cause mental retardation or autism. She should cease trying to foment fear in order to advance her political agenda." So, how far off was she?
Well, apparently way far off. And what's so fascinating is that this seems to be a part of her tactic, where she will say something absurd that nobody buys, and then she will go in for the 1-2 punch with something insane. And normally she doesn't get called out. And I think this has become a giant story because Limbaugh's calling her out and all these people. But what I find interesting is when she was in the state legislature in Minnesota, in 1993, Minnesota, and I'm from there, Minnesota passed a Hep B vaccine, mandatory. She didn't utter a peep. I looked, I researched, the Star Tribune did an article, nothing. She did not utter a peep. You get Hep B the same way, through sexual intercourse, says nothing. But what I want to know is, where is this woman? You know, who is this person? Are there journalists out there trying to find her? There's a bioethicist who studies at the University of Minnesota who's offered $1,000 to get the records of this kid. Because don't we all want to know? This sounds like something that was totally made up. Because every politician, when they're on the stump, they go, "I met Nancy in Iowa, and Nancy's a nurse," and they always know some name and they have a thing. She threw out this weird story. I just don't buy that there was really ever a person. I think she just came out and said, "I met a woman who said their kid had the virus," and all of a sudden at 12 the child becomes mentally retarded. Does that even happen?
No, I mean, most children, if they're going to show signs of mental retardation, it's much earlier. But there is the possibility, whether this is made up or part of Michelle Bachmann's imagination, that it could have real consequences on some kids. In other words, if their parents say, "Oh, because Michelle Bachmann said so, I'm not going to let my kid get a vaccine," and the kid gets HPV and then gets cancer.
Well, there's been 35 million vaccines that people have gotten over the course of this, and there has been nothing like this. Every single you know, and I'm a comedian, but every single piece of science and scientists who have studied this has said this is utterly absurd and in fact dangerous. Although I would have to say, if Michelle Bachmann said there was a vaccine that would prevent the gay, she would personally distribute it and pour it into the cereal of children. I really believe that.
This is not the first ridiculous thing Michelle Bachmann has said, whether it's saying that we should investigate the anti-American Congress or claiming that the census will be used to round up people and put them in concentration camps. With all of this craziness, is there anything that Michelle Bachmann could say that would surprise you?
Yes, that she sleeps with her husband. What? Can you say that? I'm sorry.
It came out today that Michelle Bachmann will
It came out today?
No, no.
Oh, wait. What? Okay,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm sorry. You mean something else
It
entirely.
came out today. Michelle Bachmann's going to be on The Tonight Show.
Yes.
By the way, I think you were making reference to the questions about Michelle Bachmann's husband's sexual
Who is
orientation.
totally not gay.
Totally not gay.
Totally not gay.
Michelle Bachmann's going to apparently be on The Tonight Show.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's the sort of question that that is going to be asked of her. But
Is Jack Hanna bringing her out? I'm curious. In case she goes crazy, then she needs a wrangler.
Are there any other shows that you think, other than The Tonight Show, that she would be good on?
Like 16 and Vaccinated? Is that what you're thinking? Something along those lines? Cervix with the Stars? I could go on.
I tried to come up with one referring to her husband as sort of the odd couple.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Or maybe Three's Company or something.
Or maybe, how about HPV for Vendetta? No? These are so wrong. All of a sudden I'm live hashtag twittering on your show. What happened? Well, this is devolving.
Well, let's go even further. Imagine Michelle Bachmann wins the Republican presidential nomination. Could happen, I suppose. It's also with the way the mood of the country and the president's numbers that Michelle Bachmann, despite all the crazy things that she said, I suppose there's a way she could get a majority of the votes and become president of the United States.
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you with this hypothesis of hell?
Well, let's just say, what would that Bachmann presidency look like? Other than people fleeing to Canada and Mexico.
Well, Dante would probably have something to say about it, maybe the 6 or 7 rung. It would be something, it would be a stark place, I think. It may be very much like the rapture. If the rapture is not going to happen, I think the goal of these Republicans is to make it look as much like the rapture did happen as possible.
Science has got to matter at some point, though, right?
Well, it does matter to sane people. I mean, because here's what I never understood about these people. If you believe in God and that God created all things, then God created science. Like, what is, like, I can't.
Liz,
I can't.
Thank you so much for coming on. Always appreciate it. Lizz Winstead,
Thanks.
always great to have you on the program. Well, that's it for Countdown, and what a spirited finish to this one. Thanks to Lizz Winstead, who we always love. Liz, thanks so much. I'm David Schuster, in for Keith Olbermann. More Countdown here on Current TV.